We still have some disparate perspectives on the committee itself, and Cheryl and Matthew are trying to build a consensus. So maybe identifying key components and saying, okay, building number one, you want one building or two buildings? We heard the consensus. Where does this committee want to go as a consensus?
Well,
You mean the police and the admin? I think
Right.
we thought they were together.
yeah.
We thought there was a total of 2 buildings, maybe 3 at
Right.
the most with this
Mhm.
building, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
that one's done, but now where do you want them?
And did we didn't want a street through the
Right,
middle of the
that
summer.
was what
That was
we
a big
understood.
consensus.
So
What
it was
yeah.
trying to blend.
What I'm wondering on the current plan, you know, to try to maybe, you know, take the work you've done and make it meet the
And focusing on
Discussion.
finding, yeah.
is
exactly.
I don't think it's that hard. I think you're changing a perception. But if that building moved back over the parking garage, so where it says entry plaza now, if you just slid city admin and police back to the left, you moved it. And that,
Kind of made it.
so the podium now, or the, what do you call it, the deck now is in front, is on the park side of the building.
On
So
the
you-
park side of the.
Yeah, so you
building.
just slide it over the parking
You
garage.
just split the building.
Just slide it to the left.
Yeah,
Then, but not the parking garage stays where it is, but you just slide it. And then you can move where the entry is on Fair Oaks. It can come down here by the one across the street, you can line it up like they talked about before, sure. You can do that, and then the road goes over to Station Lane.
yeah,
And so there's no big giant entry feature there.
right,
So and that backside of the building is just attractive, so when you drive down Fair Oaks, it's an attractive building that you see as you're driving 25, 30 miles an hour. And you come in to the side, that park is gonna get bigger by the size of that
Yes,
entry
it
plaza
will.
parking.
yeah,
You're gonna have a kind of slightly more formal element, where it's where you put benches and have an outdoor event on the paved area that could be attractive.
yeah.
That's
Connects
in the
building
town
with parking.
green.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you really create the perception that the entry is onto
Yeah.
the town green.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I don't know, Matthew, what you think, but I think that actually could work pretty well. I think you could put a gateway announcement right at Fair Oaks and another one before you get to the actual parking lot so people know you're arriving at the site. But as soon as you get in that far, you begin to see that slice of, formal happening facing the less formal green that leads you to the library uses and down into the park eventually. And we can craft more parking, to meet up with that and bring you right to it. So I think you're right. I think some tweaks like that actually, and I know we were sketching different variations. We were trying to get this front piece working, and you probably have one.
And you could reverse your ramps and put up, whatever you call that cross-access road
Yeah,
that parallels for Eric's,
Yeah.
that's where you could bring your ramps off that road
right.
into the building, so they're just really subordinate. You don't even
Yeah.
notice them.
And it's still, I mean, it's, I always thought it seemed a little strange, had this sliver of site, but it's actually a fairly generous distance. And, it still allows the people in Ashfield to stay on the site to get over to Maple. I mean, it's a little circuitous, but
Quite circuitous.
But their main issue in the residents that spoke to it was that they really didn't want to have to go out onto Fair
Right,
Oaks.
right.
Right.
And they knew it wasn't a fast way through, and they knew it, it wasn't just, zip over, but they just didn't want to have to deal with trying to cut out on Fair Oaks. They wanted to be able to go to Maple.
Well,
Oh, God, I
on Fair
understand.
Oaks and then go all around.
Yeah,
or
try and get
go
all
that
around if
way.
they just wanted to go in the direction of
Oh,
Maple.
got it.
So it sounded more like an issue of not forcing them out and all the way around to go in the opposite direction, rather than, I need to get there fast. Thank you. So, yeah, it's gonna still be a little circuitous, but, it's still gonna do the job of not making them come out here and then, go back around or go around to get over this way.
Can I ask a question
yes.
about the parking, along the railroad,
Up here?
parking, yeah, 12 spaces? Why can't parking continue on
The trees.
their, above
Up here?
parking?
There, you can't get to
You can't get to it unless you take out some of the trees here.
And the parking on the far right side there,
Yeah,
I think it's
but,
too far away.
including some big area streets.
I don't
That's
think
not
you
our
have to take
property.
that.
And this isn't your property,
Yeah, not our property beyond the hash line.
right?
And because they don't currently have parking
Right.
spaces there,
We weren't
we weren't
adding
allowed
them.
to do that?
Well, I don't know if we're allowed or not. We are gonna schedule a meeting with Caltrain. to
Yeah,
talk
we
about
haven't
it.
had a meeting yet with Caltrain.
But we were trying not to sort of assume or spend money on their land.
Mhm.
That's a good idea.
You know, it's like, well, we figured, well, we'll try and put back what they already have in the zones they already have.
So does any other member want to have a burning question or
Yeah,
comment?
I do have a question.
Yes.
While we're not in the design details of the administration building, one of the things that brings people to the town center is meetings of various kinds.
Yes.
The planning commission, the council meeting, various committee meetings and so forth. That would be held in the council chambers.
Yes.
So where do you see the council chambers
So-
located within the building?
Yeah, and I think you were the ones that one of the ones that also had a comment is, you know, yeah, we label them this way, but that doesn't necessarily have to be how they are. And depending on, after what we've just discussed, you know, where kind of the, you know, parking resolves, or we think people are mostly approaching, say, for a council meeting, and depending on what ends up happening with a multi-purpose room, you know, we would like there to be some synergy or reflection of people knowing where those meeting spaces are. And I would see that you would, if this becomes like your real main entrance to the administration building, you'd want those council chambers and those meeting spaces on the ground floor, I think, somewhere opening off of that experience. So that's all, that would always be the idea. And when I stacked the program, I made sure to allow for the fact that we would always want the council chambers on the ground level, along with, there's a large meeting space in the police program that would double as an EOC type of a function. You know, I would try and put those big uses on the ground level of the administration building, with access to either main entries, lobby, or exterior.
But that tells you where the main entrance of the building would be.
Exactly, and you know, I think, you know, the comments right now, I think, you know, one of our concerns was, you know, squishing this too close to Fair Oaks and forcing it to look like a back door, but I think if we kind of rework as we've just discussed and really treat this as the main and formal entry to the business side of the city. And then, you know, this is a little more pastoral and, you know, community oriented across the green, so maybe you do meander over after you're out of the formality of the admin building. I think that could be quite successful when you go to design it.
So it seems to me that the park, I mean, the library, why would we not kind of connect it somehow to this?
Well,
And open that up a bit?
right now they're at different levels in terms of grade. And this building is really challenging to try and break in at different locations or sides of it. It's just awkward. And so, and if it is,
Stay away from it.
I'm kind of inclined to stay away from it and not try and attach to it or anything like that. I think that what we can create is, you know, when this is ultimately looked at and if this is renovated, we can look at creating courtyard space in here, breezeway connections, those kinds of
It seems
things.
like it just closes off the back end, you know, it just,
Back here?
no, the rest of the property, that
Oh,
park,
yeah.
it's just like.
Remember Cheryl said that the L part of
Yeah.
the library
This
is
is the multi.
is kind of the optional space.
Right,
So
and
if you
so.
didn't have that, you'd have
Mhm.
more
It would-
open there, and then we could rework this building to
Yes.
use as that 1,000 square feet and anything else we needed for it.
And then you could look at, when you go to design this building and how it responds to what's already here, then you could look at this kind of between space and how it does lead you back, or what you capture as a courtyard between them.
How big is the town green now? Is that an acre, half an acre,
Probably, maybe certainly 3/4 an acre.
3/4 of an acre? And it may get a little bigger if we move
Right.
that building back.
Right.
It doesn't need to be a whole lot bigger.
No.
Like, like that other park doesn't, it could just be a neighborhood park.
Right,
It doesn't, it's like, sometimes more isn't better. Like,
yes, it doesn't need, I mean, we were thinking it doesn't need to be a thing, but I agree that, you know, this would essentially put all the focus this way, and so if you wanted there to be this connection or visual connection, you really wanna look at how you design these buildings together.
Or the multi-purpose room may be
Or it's-
see-through.
Yes,
It could be just
whatever.
glass, you know?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of different things that when you get into design you can do. I think the major question we have for planning purposes, you know, is do we wanna say we're not gonna show the optional additional square footage right on the new library building and say it would either be here or it wouldn't be at all? I mean, I think that's a question we have is, you know, how much do we actually show here? Cause it obviously has a cost imposing
I
impact.
think the multi-purpose room, showing where it is the right place for it, apart from everything else, it would be paid for by library funds.
Yes, that's true.
The other thing to keep in mind is you don't have to decide a future for this building.
Nope,
Other than to keep it.
right.
And in the interim, it could be storage, it could be file
Could be swing
storage.
space, could be a lot of things.
It could be for just like this, it could just be for meetings.
And, I mean, I think, you know, that's also an option in terms of how you fund and phase. You know, if you don't have money to refurbish this up front and you really don't have a critical use in there.
But it's a long-term
It's a
expansion
long-term
space.
expansion or improvement project. You know, it can still be used like sort of as is, you know, at your discretion with what you wanna do with it, but.
So I think you guys did a really good job, thoughtful job of trying to position the buildings, keeping in mind the phasing, construction phasing, and keeping our existing police and administration buildings intact. And so to reorient the position of what you have there, I think will only enhance that ability for construction.
Yeah, it will,
And,
even better.
and, you know, and whether and so I guess then I'd like to see how the entrance off of Fair Oaks and the access
Yeah,
to the
this
building
all
and access
over.
around
Yeah.
to the parking and everything really does lay out, and to see if it really works or not. But this building is just a block right now.
Yes.
There's no architectural
Nope.
dimension to it. So it's just a block. I mean, it could end up being,
Oh, it could be
Curved or
L-shaped, it
angled
could
or
be, you
edged
know,
or-
steps, it
so,
could be all
you
kinds
know,
of different things.
that's something that.
But, you know, it'll be around that
Your point
size.
is exactly what was, I think, needed to be talked about first and foremost. So thank you for bringing that up.
What was that again?
Your first point about the entrance.
She hit it on the head.
Yeah, because it just.
You want to arrive to the town
Oh,
green
yeah,
somehow.
you want to,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And to feel like I'm in the middle of the town
Right.
center, yeah, as opposed to I got to the
Do
edge
we
of it,
have
how do I
any
get in
other
there?
I
questions
just-
about?
Lance, go.
I think it's the right direction. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with arriving somewhere and then you find more spaces beyond it.
Hmm.
I think that can also be very successful. So, I mean, I don't think this would have been a bad solution. I think if we can come in off that little junction where we have,
Yeah.
where we've shown it,
Right,
somehow I think you'll end up with the block that says police. I think you just need to, Cheryl said, like step that in or something
Yeah.
to draw you
you
into
would probably, yeah,
that,
you'd probably wanna shape this building in such a
Yeah.
way that, you know, this invites you in and draws you to what's happening in here, you know, and you're not just walking, you know, you're not just driving by a blank wall, big blank maps or something. So
Yeah.
I think when the design comes, you would really wanna be shaping this building sensitively to this experience.
The only other thing I would add is, that's out of character for Atherton, is the ramp into the garage.
Yeah.
Creates a moat, and when you see those in Atherton, they don't feel like Atherton. And so, it may be a little cheaper to do the ramp outside, rather than under the, you know,
I see what, yeah, get it under the building.
I would get it under the building,
I
or
think
it's
I-
got to be hidden.
Yeah.
Maybe you can hide it along the Fair Oaks side, but it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like Atherton.
Yeah, no, I think I
Feels
would
like a
agree with
commercial
you.
office.
I was thinking about that, and now that we have a little more settled idea of the program and what the parking might wanna be underground, I think you would wanna configure it to kinda hide it, you know, just make it look like
Yeah.
it's an opening in the building that you then go down, that you can't see
Yeah.
it.
And do you really need 2 ramps? I know we were trying to give the police their own ramp, but maybe there's a creative way to, I don't know, maybe you
I
can't.
will check with
Maybe you can't share a ramp,
the
but,
garage consultant.
Yeah,
yeah,
And
cause
see,
it's only one level, but,
Right. it's good to have a backup.
the
yeah,
police are gonna have a secured area
Yes.
within it.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna
Yes.
have a gate and everything, but do they need their own ramp? Cause it's a big number, it's expensive, that ramp's a lot of dough, and it changes the character of
It
things.
does.
Yeah.
Well, if
No,
you have an
agreed.
emergency, you may
So-
want access.
Well, I guess the only thing that you could do is to landscape it and screen it.
Yeah.
That's
and
another way
that's-
to do
That's
it.
the, you know,
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay.
can I-
I mean, could you landscape it, like landscape?
Yeah.
There's ways to hide
Absolutely.
it, you can hide it.
So, just so I
He's clever,
understand,
they'll cover, they'll get
Yeah.
it. You just don't want it near where people are parking, because they'll see it.
as a person who's gonna be drawing this, we wanna come in right here,
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're gonna take the building, slide it to the
this
north.
way.
Slide it to the edge of where so you don't show heritage
Yeah.
streets,
Put
yeah.
all this stuff that was like Heritage Plaza, no parking
We'll
over
flip all
here.
that, and so when you
And you'll
come
kind of
in,
reshape this,
you're gonna come in and you're gonna drive in, you're gonna see a corner of a building on your side.
Yeah.
some piece of corner of something.
Yeah, and so it's gotta look,
Yeah,
Well, we're not
so I
designing
might,
that
we can help you
space
play
yet,
with
so.
it.
there may be a sculpture, you may do
Yeah.
something that's
Yeah, we can draw a little.
Yeah,
bit.
you
I
can,
know that-
you
that-
could
that-
kind of, you know,
the plans, you know,
indent
the
colors,
colors
you
or
can kind of
something.
have some way to signify you're arriving. I mean, all
Right.
right, we can.
Let's move on.
Can we
Can
move on to
put the
4A
police
at this point?
communications tower on top of the building? That would be much
I
more
was thinking-
effective
You
then.
mentioned that, Phil, in your comments. You can. It's just, it's an expense. I mean, this plan would allow you to leave it right where it is and connect to it when you build the new building. You can certainly do it. I know when we've worked with the Menlo Park Fire District on trying to put new towers up or get towers on buildings, boy, that's been tough. You know, because people don't, because basically you're gonna add elevation, and so now all your residents will
It's
see
really-
all of that tower.
Yeah.
And generally, we just get a lot of backlash on that.
I don't think anybody sees it where it is now.
No, they don't.
No.
And, you know, right now, you don't really, I don't think you
No.
really get a lot of complaints or anything, right? It's just there, it's been there, they're used to it.
Just from the neighborhood.
It's small.
Yeah, yeah,
And they already got it, yeah.
yeah. So, you know, yes, it's always possible, but is it really the best use
More
of your money?
effective radio-wise, if it was on top of the building.
Do they have a problem?
I don't know if they have a problem or not.
No, and there's space on that tower, there's a lot of unused antenna on
Is
it.
there?
Oh, yeah, so, you know, when you do this project, you can clean out a lot of that, just get rid of all the vendors using the tower, get them to remove their stuff, you know, you could clean it up and get a lot more utilization out of it.
We could tell them to make it look like a redwood tree.
You know,
You wanna make money?
when I went to Africa, there was a tree that looked very much like they make up the, you know,
Yes.
tower, so
Yeah.
like, and I was joking with the guy, I'm like, oh yeah, it looks like a, you know, a cell phone antenna tower, and he's like, what? You know, I don't believe you, why would you dress them up as trees? I'm like, oh, we got no idea.
Was there a consensus on this plan?
Yeah, so we were talking about,
We're
you know,
redrawing
entry
it as we
here,
speak.
you know, kind of, you know,
This
break
is draw on
line,
demand.
create more of a, make sure that this is reworked to create more of that presence, so as you slide the building, this becomes your sort of main formal
So those
entrance
18
plaza.
spaces basically are probably gonna flip-flop to
Yeah.
Ashfield Road.
Yeah,
So when
Okay.
you'll come in from Ashfield to park in them, most likely.
most likely.
Or you'll have some on Ashfield, some on the top and
Right.
some on the bottom.
Oh, I don't think you're gonna.
And we'll have
Because
to
you
take
wanna
a
get
look.
parking
I know,
along
but you're not
Ashfield.
gonna make a parking
Well,
lot.
especially
We also
if you
need to
move
look at all
Along
the
the
traffic
green,
flow
We're gonna put some
through
parking
here.
up there.
Especially if you move admin and that down, that's where people are gonna wanna go into the post
Yeah.
office
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
this stuff.
so you're gonna have a lot of like run-in right from here type
Yeah.
of
But you're
traffic.
not gonna make it.
So we'll have to look at this whole experience and
Well,
make
you're
sure
gonna
that
put at
there's.
least one row, but you're gonna have extra space, because you don't need, so if you move one row parking up along the town green,
Mhm.
then what do you do with the other row parking? Do you leave it way off and,
No.
but that's gonna be
No,
Matthew's job to
I
figure
think
it
you
out.
have to rework this whole.
Because it's a little bit too awkward to
Yeah.
bring, I don't know, you gotta think it through.
Yeah.
But the big move is the building north.
Right, big
Yeah.
move, building,
And then-
entry, retreat, look at this again, so
Yeah.
that your whole experience works well together, you
Yeah.
know, gateway
Okay.
point.
More parking up on the
Once
top.
this moves, you get more opportunity for this kind of formal plaza treatment, and this is a real entrance. Kind of back to this, leave it like it is, more or less.
I think Elizabeth's point was, can these two buildings be a little more connected, maybe?
I think you have grade change issues. If you raise this up to
Eventually,
match
yes.
this elevation, I mean, you just have to work it out. I
But were
mean,
you doing that lovely plaza,
yeah,
is there, would you, when we get to landscape
Yeah.
architecture, would you extend it, would you somehow tie it to
Yes.
this building so that,
That's- yeah, it's a
yes,
whole
the idea would
idea.
be you'd have something that really creates,
landscape
you know,
issue.
a space or an
Trellis.
experience
some,
between.
some,
Yeah.
No,
We were just making a
Synergy.
gesture.
The other thing is, on this plan, the courtyard is not there, and I.
Okay,
think
so
that-
on your option A, on the printout,
Mhm.
were some studies that Matthew had done, that if the courtyard stays with or without all that additional surface parking, you know, that back corner would be entering off of Station Lane, somewhere tucked back here would be where we would include it if it stays on site. It would be screened and,
There's more space utilized external in the courtyard area.
right now, yes.
Right now,
Right.
than is shown on
It's,
your plan.
yeah, but we actually talked with Steve and sort of programmed out what they exactly need. It's just,
Okay.
it's so poorly
It is.
arranged right now that it's really spread out. But we actually met with him and really pinned down like, you know, how many bins, how much parking, how much open area, what kind of shed. So this footprint that we've been working with captures what is actually needed.
Good.
And so it is much more petite than what you're seeing now, just because it's so inefficient.
Cheryl, when this is presented next week,
Mm-hmm.
will the name police and city admin account, can we flip
Yeah, we'll
those?
flip them.
It's flipped on
So
four
it's,
A.
it's on,
Yeah, it's already
it's
flipped.
flipped on four A.
So, you know,
Oh, I didn't know.
what I might do is I may just we may label it as, you know, city administration building, and underneath, you know, police, building planning, you know, finance.
People want to know where the
Specificity.
So it's just, you know, it's not trying to say one is on either
Yeah.
side.
And if you,
Post office right there.
if those
on the front
ramps
corner.
move,
Yeah.
then you can put parking down
Right.
both
Yeah.
sides of the building,
Yeah.
which will look so much better.
Yeah, exactly, here and here.
Because
Instead
if
of
for a
ramps,
big
the
council
ramps move
meeting,
over here or
everybody
something.
can park right on, and not across the street and not just right there.
That kind of gets to, I mean, it's not hard to see, but as we're talking, this is gonna become our main gateway.
Yeah.
Right.
And so this is gonna become, you know, really important moment right here
Mhm.
as you come in. And as you transition down, I think it's gonna be, you know, we'll finesse it, but I'm not sure if you really wanna see this parking. You wanna have an entry sequence, you
Yeah,
wanna
you
have.
don't, I disagree about how the parking along.
Where are you gonna park and walk in without crossing the street? Where do you park on this side that doesn't require crossing, what is, will be a fairly busy
Right.
street?
I think we should have some parking
I mean, you could
On
travel
this-
Cedar Street, you know.
Yeah.
on the north.
But they can tuck it in, Elizabeth, and it can be attractive.
They can put.
Okay, let's let them work on that.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
work
work
on
on
that.
that. Okay, so, I'm just scanning my other comments to see, was there anything that we haven't discussed that some of you had comments on? Courtyard, we just said we would,
So you,
in your option A, we would think it would sit
And-
back here if you want it
and
here.
then where's all these 23 more spaces?
Well,
You're
and then
gonna
that
make
was the
park again?
question, there were some comments about too much park back here, and do we have
That
enough
was how they
overall
got the
parking?
parking count up to closer to the 160, the current.
Yeah,
I would show it as landscape reserve.
okay.
Yeah,
I would show it as future additional parking if necessary.
Okay, so I think maybe what we can do
And then
is
the-
dash in the outline of the courtyard and then dash in, you know, future parking for
If
20
needed.
spaces if desired. And we really showed that the park, you know, use is what's the hard lines drawing, and these are just dotted lines that show with labels the outlines.
You know, I don't know if the staff has made comments on this, but I look at it and go, we're adding a whole lot of maintenance here. We do lousy maintenance, excuse me for my,
Oh, the landscape.
well, we don't do so much lousy maintenance
well, we have
anymore.
different people, but we still
Yeah.
don't do a great job
Well,
if you look at
if
stuff.
we
So my
fund it,
reaction is
I
it's
think,
gotta be
you know.
really simple.
Yeah, but I think that
Portola Valley.
I think you're reflecting
Really
back
simple.
in history a bit, you know, how. it
Well,
used
and
to
just,
be.
you know,
It's
one
not
of
so
the
much
things we
that
tried to focus
Without a
on
technical
is
garden.
preserving the heritage trees.
Right.
So a lot of your
Right.
landscaping are large trees.
Oak understory.
Yeah, I don't
But I
think-
don't think
Stands
that-
and trees.
We can't do a lot of.
And very simple understory.
Yeah,
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 that can't be heavily watered.
right.
So can I just raise a question, going back to the courtyard for a moment?
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
do you think that we should be showing the future location of the courtyard? Is there some reason to do with, you know, the Parks and Rec that we can't show where the courtyard is going? I think we kind of need to make that decision.
Well, you know, I think what I heard from several of the community meetings that I attended was that, look, it's really a decision to be made by staff and the people that use the courtyard and the people that run the town. I, as a resident, I can't make that decision, it's a functionality. If it's okay to put it in the park and it's not gonna disturb the park, you know, with excess cars and trucks going back and forth, that's fine, and you don't need the convenience. Or if it should stay here in the town center area for ease of access and deployment throughout town, rather than having to drive through the park every time you need to deploy a service truck. The maintenance yard at the park is one where all the equipment there really just stays at the park. It's not deployed throughout town, so it's not coming in and out of the park all the time. And so it's my sense that staff feels that the courtyard should stay here on the town site somewhere.
That's correct.
Then if that's true,
Yeah,
We should
then
find
it
a place for
shouldn't
it.
be,
Then it shouldn't be dashed, we
No,
should
it
just show
shouldn't
it.
be dashed,
Okay.
it should be shown there.
Okay.
Yeah, and, but I'm not sure that you want it like in the middle of this.
Yeah, it's kind of prominent.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can finesse that.
I think it
Yeah,
needs to
yeah,
go someplace
Yeah, this
else.
was just trying to combine maximizing
Yeah.
parking and the court.
Well,
Yeah,
you
but we
know,
can
the
just-
landscaping, the screening that goes around that can make it disappear.
Yeah.
So.
Can you
it's
hide
a
it off in that
landscaping
corner?
problem.
Or by the 18 spaces or somewhere?
Over here?
Well, what
Actually, we looked at
It's
that.
pretty well hidden
Yeah.
now.
Hidden now.
Yeah.
Leave it there.
Well, but we're putting the road where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
But that main road is over it now.
Right.
That's where it is.
I think with this road solves one of the problems on that site, which is, that's a very dangerous junction.
Yeah.
And this roadway
So this is better.
layout.
So that means
solves that
moving the
problem.
courtyard
Yeah.
west a little
So
bit.
you're
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah.
you'll be creative,
Well, yeah.
Matthew, and think of a little, or
And
Carol,
then
think
put
of
it
a spot.
underground.
Yeah, what do you think?
Underground court parking.
18-foot clear.
Yeah.
But you can make, this, there's a cluster of
Yeah,
trees.
cluster of trees here.
And there's a cluster of trees like right here,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, those are existing,
These
A
are-
lot of these
a
are
lot of these,
existing.
right, yeah.
but you could,
That's
you know.
Yeah.
Actually, I think, it,
Okay.
you think.
Yeah.
I think we can get it in there and hide it, you know, and, you know, it's kind of like no one from here would notice it and no one driving along would notice it, except there's a little gate.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the staff's reasons for not wanting to move it to the park.
One of the reasons is, as the mayor already articulated, is it will require a lot more in and out of the park. It will pretty much double the size of what's there, and occupy space in the park now that it's otherwise park space. And I think you'll get a lot of pushback from the community in that respect, from a political perspective. Operationally, a lot of coming and going, a lot more noise and operations earlier in the morning in the park than is there now.
And from what I heard at several of the meetings, the residents said, look, we can't make that judgment call. Let staff decide.
Yep.
Well, and then we also have, if you double that, and that's on the property line between Felton Gables and us, and we haven't engaged Felton Gables, we're asking for another problem with Felton Gables. Therefore.
Yeah,
Where's the-
I think it should, yeah, right, yeah,
The only difference is, how big is the park? 17 acres.
22.
22.
And this is 2.5, isn't it? So
4.5.
Okay, fine. Take
Yeah,
out a lot
so
more
4.
little books and crannies over there.
I
That's,
think we had a better spatial.
yeah, I'm sorry.
So George, would you say the bottom line is it's more efficient for you, for staff to have it here? I mean, disregarding the in and out stuff and all that,
Far more efficient.
Yeah. so-
from a
Be
working
creative.
standpoint.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we should deal with it. Okay, so any other key comments for refinement to get this where it needs to be? Okay.
Well, more, no, but we're, yeah,
I know, it's like you're almost out of your meeting time, so.
let's just move on
Well,
because,
yeah,
yeah.
I think we've given enough input. Let's
Yes.
get it back to the public
so,
and get more.
Yeah.
are we into the project narrative describing project assumptions or high-level cost estimates?
So let's,
Can I
before
come
we
back to
leave
it?
the plan, I just want to touch on phasing, which will set up our cost estimate. And one of the things that you can see by this overlay, which I think will even get better when we make our latest adjustments, is we're actually in very good shape in terms of minimizing the need for temporary space or swing space. And my biggest question, because I think we can direct our cost estimate and work with staff to kind of lay out the steps or what the right sequence might be, and then how much of a premium to put in the cost estimate to allow for some of that swing space. But my question to all of you, based on what you know about the state of funding right now, I understand the library has money in hand. Should we focus a sequence of work on doing the library building first and then the administration building, or vice versa?
Construction?
Yes.
I think it'll happen once.
Well, we'll all happen at once, but you're gonna be moving people around while they're sequencing through the construction.
Where are you gonna park?
Right, and so, you know, I think that with the way the plan works, there are ways to do kind of half and half on the site and keep roads, you know, access to what's still open during construction. And so.
Is there one that works better than the other?
No, I was just looking at it with Gordon before the meeting, and, yeah, I think we can make them work equally
Okay.
well.
Is there,
So here's
is
the-
there a cost efficiency in approaching it all at the same time versus piecemeal?
Yes.
Yeah, there would be some.
Yes.
What we
And-
talked about was that, if I may, we'll have to consider the cost of temporary space plus moving versus
Yep.
the premium of having some operations happen on the site twice.
Right.
Or 2 different times.
And so that would be something we can work with staff and our cost estimator on doing that analysis.
Oh,
I have a quick question. I mean, so how important is this? It's gonna be factored into your cost estimates?
Yes.
Okay, rather than that, and we do the cost estimates before we can go out to CEQA?
Yes, well, before you can go out for fundraising.
Well, but
The square footage stuff is the sequel stuff.
this,
The
yeah,
cost
so I mean,
estimate is
isn't
first.
that the most important thing right now?
The square footage?
Yeah,
Well, for us to conclude our process, in January, and have a full and complete master plan to present to council, we need the cost estimate. I mean, I think,
I have an opinion on this, which is,
well,
they're at where
we're not talking about square footage right now. We're talking about this. That's what she wants to do. And I brought, so she said, we've got to do this in order to get to the cost estimate. So,
it's just something
We
that
can't
we
raise
need
money
to
for
know.
your cost estimate.
What's that?
right.
We can't raise.
is it
money.
cost, but you can't build it all at once from a park. Can you park it? Can you live in it and park it, well, if you're building everything at the same time? Or is it
No,
impossible?
not very well.
Uh,
Because if you take it all down at once, I mean,
Why don't you, can they just do a little study for us and then come back with it? So they'll show, build it all at once, build the library first, build these.
be delighted.
Because then they can just tell us, here's
Yeah.
what you
Because
do.
that's what we were gonna do, is we were gonna analyze, the differences in cost between more offloading and temporary quarters versus less, so that you can, stay in place while construction goes on. And each has cost implications in different ways, and in the end, once we analyze it, I figure one's gonna come out on top.
We don't mind shutting down the libraries, but I think we heard
Right.
before, right?
Right.
If we have to shut down the library for a year, we're okay with that.
Right, but it's police that I gathered was the biggest concern, and then city operations, somewhat, but there'd be ways you could work around or set up temporarily elsewhere.
Or they could relocate city offices to this building
I was
here.
gonna say,
Right.
yeah, couldn't
Is
we
it
use
feasible
this
then
building
to
temporarily?
build the library first,
Yeah.
while everything is still going on,
Yeah.
move everything into the library, keeping the library
Reload
shut
to the
down,
park.
while you do the rest of it, and keeping everything still
I think
pretty much
my-
on
I
site?
think my goal, you don't wanna move anybody twice. So the police, I think, becomes the linchpin of, the most expensive to set up temporarily because of their communications and dispatch. So if you can leave them in place till you're ready to move them into their new building, that's to me the first priority, whatever you're choosing to do and phasing everything else. So that'd be one thing I'd want to avoid, is moving police twice. I think if you could shut down the library for a year, if you can, move city staff in here, you can do your council meetings elsewhere, then that would say to me, position the new building so that
Right.
police can stay in business the whole time until the very end, when you put the
Which is what
last
you have
parking
here.
lots, which is pretty much how we set it up. And
Yeah.
with the moves today, I think it can be even better.
Mhm.
So, my suspicion is that you guys can field the temporary quarters pretty readily and shut down the library for a year. It's gonna be cheaper to say, do it all at once, leave the police in place where they are during the whole construction till the very end, move everybody in, get it open,
Then you're gonna do your site work
then you do your
last.
last bits and pieces of site work.
Well, then you're gonna keep Ashfield open,
Yeah,
Station
exactly,
Lane,
exactly.
until the police are into the police
Yep.
station, then
Yep.
you're gonna build the road out, then you're gonna make the
Yep.
line bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
We ought to ask Tom, what about shutting
Yeah.
the library down
Yeah.
for a year?
Well, of course, it's the town's decision, but we would prefer to be able to remain open in some sort of temporary arrangement. But
Yeah.
if it's not possible,
And that's an easy fixed cost.
might even be
Is
in
way.
this
there
building.
a
Can you move in here?
colonial
It might
kind
be
of
this
thing that we
building.
could,
One
create,
I think you're
trailer?
gonna have to
We
tell
could
them.
put-
I think you could put
We could.
trailers,
Yeah.
double wides or something.
Yeah.
We could.
It's,
I know, so
but
you,
why-
and more trailers.
Yeah, can we leave Atherton?
Do you have this one,
Why not
do you have this
trailers?
one on
That just seems like
It's
it's
like
a
parking
no to
garage
me.
that starts to
I don't know why
interfere.
we're doing
You
Yeah,
can't
this.
show
I
us,
don't
it's
think
a
that it's a
problem.
big deal.
Yeah,
You
and when
know,
you try to
the
start
two
to excavate,
schools,
you're gonna
Menlo
start to
and
undermine.
Sacred
You
Heart,
don't wanna
these
do,
trailers
uh,
are under the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, all right, hold on,
It might
hold
be
on.
cheaper.
Hold on. So I think Rose, And, you know, we were just talking with Tom, is that, you know, to pull some trailers on the site, over in this park area, away from all the construction, tear everything down, and just set them up, you know, we've got the room.
Mobile
And-
modular.
Mobile modular, leave
As long
the
as they don't
police,
become
leave the
permanent.
police where
Put 'em
they
in the
are.
Move to the
Well, we've done that
No,
before.
leave the,
Yeah.
okay, you guys, wait a minute, leave the police where they are, in fact, you can even cut off
Yeah.
part of the building and
Yeah.
leave the police where it is
Right.
until the very end.
Yep.
Okay, so that's safe.
So that gives us enough
That's
guidance,
all,
I think, to
right?
work with staff on
Yeah.
how to
That's
set up
right.
the costs.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a
Like you
big
said, even
deal.
works better moving the building to the north wall.
Yeah, I think it will.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so
then-
that I wanted to get that out of the way so we can have a sense of
Great.
how to structure the cost estimate. You know, some of the other things in terms of our narrative or our description, again, this helps us set the square foot cost level. You know, I sent a series of comments to staff to sort of, okay, here's how we're directing our cost estimator, and where we're thinking this needs to be, you know, 50-year buildings, it's a civic center, it needs to have durability, permanence, LEED gold level target in terms of performance. Materials we'd be looking at for, say, exterior skins would be, you know, high performing exteriors, you know, steel, glass, stone, wood. I mean, you know, we wouldn't do wood framing and stucco, for example, on these kinds of buildings. You know, so I just wanted to kind of get an interior finishes. Police, we know the level of durability and protection that needs to happen on, you know, like patrol floors and, you know, the heavier use police floors. And we also kind of understand, you know, kind of what goes into a library typically. So, you know, we're pretty comfortable with gauging interiors and systems. But just wanted to put that out there, and is that, in your minds, the kind of civic center facilities you think you would want to build? Is something of that lifespan, that durability, that level of sustainability, those kinds of materials on its exterior? Does that sound about right?
Well, I'll go first. I don't want it to be, you know, big and glass and steel and modern.
And this is nothing to do with design, it's helping our customers simply set a square foot cost that you could buy those types of materials. You don't need to choose them, but you're not gonna be forced down to only working with, say, stucco and a few doodads, you know, trims here and there, tile or something. You know, it's to set the bars that you could afford that level of
I don't want it to
construction.
look like Dallas.
No, it can't look like Dallas. It has to look like
Well, I'm
Atherton.
hearing.
And if you had photos, it would be so much easier.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pull that together, and that was one of my questions for the
I like
workshop.
tile roofs.